Hey everyone, and welcome to this Factorio Space Age discussion video here. I was part of the closed beta testing for Factorio 2.0 Space Age expansion, and I want to make a video here just going over everything I experienced at the event, everything I experienced with the game itself, and kind of give my thoughts, impressions, feedback, and some information to you all. Now, this was an event hosted by the developers, and I'm very, very thankful and grateful that I was invited. So thank you so much to the entire development team for inviting me and hosting this event. It was honestly awesome, and there's a lot to discuss here. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? So how long was this testing? This was a 5-day event, and each day was about 10-ish hours. Some days were actually a little longer than that. Now, I was not there for 12 hours all 5 days. I did some touristy stuff as well. I went with my girlfriend, so we did some of that. And yeah, so I was not there for the entire, like, 12 hours, 5 days, 5 days, but I was there for quite a lot of it. And I would say that I played the game for definitely probably 30 or so hours. I spent a lot of my time talking with developers and talking with other people there because, I have from now until the expansion releases to play the expansion on my own and such. So I didn't really want to devote my entire time to playing it there. I wanted to also devote some time to, meeting the developers who made Factorio and talking with other creators and mod makers and stuff like that. So I'm going to give my kind of impressions on all that. So let's go ahead and get started. There's a few pictures here that are being shown just of kind of the event itself, how it was set up. So there were roughly 100 people invited to this, and it was a culmination of content creators, mod makers, Discord, Factorio official Discord mods for Factorio Discord, and really, very active members from there, and some other folks here and there. I certainly did not know everybody there. I did know quite a few people there. We had Neil House was there, Catherine Sky was there, a lot of mod makers like Code Green, who has helped me with some of my mods, was there. Some folks from Discord. I know Dylan, who, if you're part of the Factorio Discord, you probably see him around a lot. Soulburn, who is very active on the Discord and also helped with our 2.0 simulation mods for the quality aspect of that. So he was there. He was part of my team. Colonel Will, of course, Mojo, and then Studex, who is part of Colonel Will's community, and there were just a bunch of other folks there. The whole speedrunning team, Zulon, Anti-Elites, Cyber, and all these people were there. But yeah, there were a lot of people there, and I think there were technically like 12 teams. I think some teams had less or something, but because our team was 11, so definitely more than 10 teams. And you can see in the room here, they just had all these PCs set up. It was an awesome setup. I mean, they spared no expense. These were all very high, high tier Alienware whole setups included. And they also had like a cool like retro game room and board game room. I didn't really visit those much because I was there for Factorio. And then you can see there was also a picture of all the developers stood up there on stage. This was the closing like event and talk at the very last day. Everyone's up there. Kovarex is in the middle, like right over the logo in the background, and then to his right is Boss Kid, and Twinson is like 2 people over. We have JG is several people over to Kovarex's right. All the way on the right is Troopin, and there were a bunch of people there. Regard is sitting down. There were a few other people I met. Some of them were kind of covered, but yeah, there were a lot of awesome devs there. Now let's get into the actual gameplay, because I'm sure that's what you all really want to hear about. I don't want to spend this whole time talking about the event. So the gameplay, in a word, is amazing. It is massive. The devs said that they expect the expansion to be as much content as the vanilla game. I would say they are right, and I would almost argue there is potentially more content than the vanilla game. Now, my view could be tainted because I've played the vanilla game for almost 10 years now, over 10,000 hours. It's kind of all condensed to me in a way. Whereas if I were to just, as a new player, compare the current 1.1 content to the expansion content, I maybe would have a different view. But in my opinion, it has at least as much content as the vanilla game as a whole. you know, as obviously adding on to vanilla, onto 1.1. So there's a lot there. Now, I am under NDA, as was everybody there, and I cannot talk about things that have not been shown or talked about officially. So basically, anything that has been talked about in Friday Facts, I can talk about. I can give like a little more detail to it, or clarifications if it's been talked about in Friday Facts. Or like in this B-roll footage you're seeing, this was all given to us by the devs. There may be spoilers in there. I've heard there are a couple, but this was given to us by the devs, so this is footage I am allowed to show. But again, I cannot like say stuff that has not been officially revealed yet. And then yeah, I'll go a little more into that near the end of this video. But let's just start off. So how does the game start? Well, quite honestly, it's very similar up until you launch a rocket. Now there is, in this we kind of knew, right, just from what they've revealed. There is a bunch of quality of life stuff that you do get access to, obviously, from the start of the game, and you will get access to it whether you actually purchase, the full DLC or not. That's just going to be part of the 2.0 update. And it's awesome. There's train interrupts, there's elevator rails, which not only look amazing, they work really well. They just allow you to do a bunch more stuff. There's logistic groups, which are really, really helpful, especially later on as you start working with like space platforms and stuff. And then there's so many I just can't name off the top of my head. I'm not like looking through all the Friday Facts as I record this or anything, but there's a lot of quality of life. So that will be the main difference you will notice when playing. But up until you launch a rocket, there's not any like massive gameplay differences. There are some differences with the enemies, and they did reveal this in the latest Friday Facts, so I can talk about it, and we did in my Friday Facts video. The enemies are tougher. The biters on Novice are tougher. They made their health scale with evolution, the spawners at least. I don't believe the biters actually do, although I could be wrong. Again, I don't have that up in front of me, but the biters are tougher. I did notice that right away as I went to fight biters. I was like, man, either something got nerfed or these got stronger, because these are taking a long time to kill. And yeah, both things happened actually. They nerfed PLDs and some other stuff, and then they made the biters stronger themselves, which I think is good, because if you're not playing with a death world and you're a fairly experienced player, they become quite trivial and more just kind of, well, a bug or annoyance. Like, they're just kind of a little like a gnat. They're not a huge threat that, in 1.1, but in 2.0 they definitely are, harder to deal with. But once you launch a rocket, that's when obviously things change. So rockets are now significantly cheaper. I'm not going to mention the cost because I cannot remember if that cost was specifically mentioned in a Friday Facts, but they are, I will just say, substantially cheaper than than rockets are now. And that's because, that's not the end goal anymore. You don't need to just launch one rocket. You need to launch tens or hundreds or thousands of rockets to actually be sustainable, because the rockets are how you get things obviously onto your space platform to not only build it, but to also get items to it to then transfer to other planets. And, you need to launch a lot of rockets for that. So once you launch your first rocket, now you can get space science from it. And then after that, you can get space science from platforms, which they've already shown. And that's going to be the way you will want to do it. Likely, it's significantly better to get space science via a platform than it is to get space science from just launching the rocket. And you will want all your rockets to go to transporting materials up to space rather than actually just getting space science for you. So after that point, then things really start to change, because then you get into the platform building. And I will just say that whoever, I forget exactly who it was, I apologize, but whoever worked on the actual like animation building out of the platform, like chef's kiss, absolutely fantastic. They showed some of it in Friday Facts, but I will just tell you from actually playing it, the animation in like the building aspect of a space platform looks so cool. It looks so awesome, especially when you do like huge sections at once and place a bunch of stuff down. The way it just like auto builds itself and stuff, because you can't have bots up there, you can't have logistic chests or anything like that. So the way it builds itself out just absolutely looks amazing. It works really well. Now I will say that there are a few little rough edges, like building a platform, and there's other people who like, there were a lot of people there who mentioned this, so the devs are aware of this. This was reported they are going to try to work on this if they have time before 2.0. If not, then right after. But it is not super intuitive how to actually start your space platform. Again, I'm not going to go into details with that, but that could probably be worked on. That was like one kind of rough part, is it was not really straightforward on how to actually start it and expand it, or really even necessarily like go to your first planet, in my opinion. So, there are some like a little bit of rough edges, but overall amazing. The remote view is, I mean, the remote view is crucial. Like, you couldn't really play this expansion without it. It's good even just on novice, but it's really important on platforms and on other planets, because the remote view lets you obviously act as if you were there. Like, you can, access, the entire list of everything you've unlocked, almost like in editor mode. Obviously, it's not free, but you can then just, place stuff down. You can open boxes, you can rotate belts and everything, so that you can actually, build your thing remotely and not actually have to be on it. Because actually, once you're on the platform, you're just on it. But yeah, so but yeah, basically platform is awesome. Once you get a platform built, I mean, you need one for space science. You could then, use that one to go to planets, but obviously your platform wouldn't be over novice, so you couldn't really use it for space science at that point. So then you probably would want to build another one to go to planets. Now, we'll talk about the planets that have been revealed. We have Volcanus, we have Fulgora, and we have Gleba, or Gleba. I'm not exactly sure. I heard people pronounce it both ways, so I'm not 100% sure how it's supposed to be pronounced. But yeah, we have Gleba, and they've all been shown in Friday Facts. I will say this. Again, I cannot talk about some things on them, but I will say this. Each of these planets has things that have not been shown on the Friday Facts, which were quite the surprise. So it's not just like they just showed all their cards on the Friday Facts, and you just know everything. You definitely don't. There's some pretty interesting stuff on these planets that were not shown, that make it a pretty dynamic and yeah, very intriguing way to play on each of the planets. And they're all different, and you can go to any of them. They're all the same distance from novice. It's not necessarily more difficult to get to one than it is to other, and it's entirely up to the player. Each one of them has rewards. We already know, some of them, like Volcanus, you obviously get the foundry, the big mining drill, and Fulgora, you get the EM plant, which is insane because it can do circuits and modules, which again we already knew. And then Gleba, you get some stuff. The rewards are like a little more late game, or almost niche in a way. Like, they're really good, but it's not like an EM plant that can just supercraft all your circuits, or like a foundry that can supercraft all of your metals type of thing. So I would be surprised if a lot of people go to Gleba first. Some people at the event did, because they were just interested in it, and it is a really cool, interesting planet. I would say, excuse me, I would say it's the most fiddly, like in terms of like complexities and intricacies of like the production chains and stuff. It's definitely the most complex in that regard. But I didn't actually spend a ton of time on Gleba. I spent most of my time on Volcanus, and then some time on Fulgora, a lot of time on Novice, obviously. And I will say that the time I did spend on all the planets was quite good. I really enjoy Volcanus. Now, obviously, there's like cliffs and all the lava, which makes it really annoying kind of to build, but you do unlock cliff explosives there, so you'll probably be using those, pretty early on once you get there. But aside from the space constraints, I absolutely love the gameplay on Volcanus. Like, it's probably so far my favorite planet to play on. I just really like the mechanics, even though it deals with fluids a lot. The new fluid system like fixes all my issues with the fluids, so I don't really have an issue with that. It's really amazing. And I don't know, I mean, I love the foundry and the big mining drills just as buildings and how they work and how they look. So I had a lot of fun playing on Volcanus. I did actually enjoy Fulgora as well. Now, like, the scrap harvesting, recycling, and all that was already set up by somebody else on our team, so I didn't really get into that, but I did like look through it and kind of follow the production change and expand chains, and follow the stuff farther down and like build some additions onto it. And I did have quite a bit of fun there. And the lightning aspect is really interesting too. I think the lightning aspect is not as annoying as I thought it would be, and it but it is interesting. So I did like that quite a lot. And I can't talk about the last planet at all. So I'm not going to talk about that or anything past the first three planets, or additional three planets besides novice rather. But I can say that from what I played as a whole, the expansion feels really good. There are some unintuitive parts. I will say that. And again, the devs are very aware of this. When we were playing, we had like a way to submit feedback within the game, and we still have this option as we play at home now. So they're continually getting feedback. I believe someone said that I don't know if it was Trupin or Kovacs actually who said that they received like 700 separate pieces of separate feedback submissions during this event. And I mean, that's huge. Obviously that's kind of overwhelming. I certainly don't think they can do all of it in the next month and a half before release, but they are quick, and they're great. Like, they were putting out daily patches during the event, and some days they were putting out multiple. Like, if there was a bug found that was somewhat significant, they would patch it during lunch break and it would be fixed by the time we were done eating lunch. Like, we knew the devs were fast, but being there and seeing them putting out fixes to stuff like 2-3 times a day in this like 10-hour period is really awesome. And I'm very confident that any bugs that are caught during beta testing will be fixed for release. Now, obviously there may be some that are not caught, although we caught a lot, and again, we still have a month, us beta testers to, and they're gonna, I believe, maybe invite more people later on at some point. I'm not really sure on that. But we have a month still to find stuff. And overall, I mean, it's not like the game was like super bug ridden. A lot of it was small stuff. There were a couple bigger things, but those were already patched out during the event. But like I said, to wrap back around, there's a few unintuitive parts, but other than that, it's an amazing experience. I can tell you with confidence that there's just so much content in this expansion, and so many new things and so many new mechanics, and it blends well together. And I mean, if you're on the fence about purchasing it, I mean, if you are any fan of Factorio at all, I would just buy it when it comes out. Like, it's if you enjoy the game like as it is now, I think you will absolutely enjoy this. If you enjoy mods, that make things more complicated, you will also enjoy this. This does feel kind of like a mod, not in a bad way, but more like just, it is definitely a step up in terms of complexity from what we've had in Factorio before. It's kind of more leaning towards, a BOS mods or space exploration, but not like all the way, like not, it is certainly not that like complex and convoluted, but it is definitely a step up from what we have played with all these years. And I think it is well worth the money to purchase it if you enjoy the game at all. I'm trying to think what else to go into here, because again, there's a lot that I cannot say. But I think I think they did a really, really great job. Things are just more cohesive than I thought they would be. All the enemy combat mechanics on the planets where enemies exist feel good from what I've experienced, and all the quality of life is just fantastic. There's so many quality of life things. I didn't even experience them all, honestly. There's probably like quality of life stuff I didn't even mess with. Train interrupts are incredibly powerful. I will say that is one thing that is kind of unintuitive. Our team, and I mean, our team consisted of people who know how to use trains. Like, we had Mojo on our team. We had V on our team, who is a developer. We had, Soulburn and Stu and Colonel Will, and we struggled getting the train interrupts working correctly. Like, there were quite a few times where they just, like, the train network just stopped working because something wasn't quite right with them. I think like once you understand it, it'll make sense and they'll be fairly straightforward to use, and they are amazing like once we got it working. But yeah, I will say that maybe could be a little more intuitive, or maybe we're just all stupid. That's possible too. But yeah, they are the train interrupts are incredibly powerful and a really really good feeling. And I think that's pretty much what I have to say about the expansion itself that I can talk about. Now, a few things to go into past this, and I do, ask that you or suggest maybe stick around for the next few minutes just so you know what to expect on my channel once the media embargo lifts and up until then. So far, Friday Facts videos I do have been very speculative in the fact where they, give information. I go through the information with you guys as an overview, and then I give my speculations. Well, that format's going to change a bit because obviously it's not really speculations now. I've played with the stuff, and I know like the stuff that's not being shown or anything like that, but I can't really talk about it unless it's been specifically talked about in the Friday Facts. So what my Friday Facts are going to turn into is very much still an overview, so you can still expect that. I will go through what they mentioned in the Friday Facts, and then it will be kind of giving some more perspective on what they talked about. Now I will be, very conscientious and careful not to be giving anything away that was not mentioned in the Friday Facts, even if it's related. But I think I can just give kind of a better, more full perspective of what was specifically mentioned just because I've actually played with it now. So that's kind of what it's going to turn into. There's not going to be much speculation because, again, I don't have to speculate on anything, or I mean, I could fake it, but what's the point of that? It seems kind of silly to me. So that's the Friday Facts, how that's going to be for the next month and a half until 2.0 comes out. And then once the media embargo lifts, which I believe is like a week before release, I'm going to release a couple pieces of content. So I'm going to release an overview video of the expansion. Anyone who's been around the channel a while will know that I do overview videos every time there's a big update to the game. And I really enjoy doing those. People seem to like watching them, and I think they're helpful to folks. So I will be doing that, and I will, before anyone worries, I will do the overview video where the first part of it is going to be an overview of everything that's been shown in the Friday Facts, because I promise you there's going to be stuff they do not show on the Friday Facts before the game's release. There's just not enough weeks of FFFs to show everything that's in the game, and they probably don't want to. So there's going to be some surprises in there. So the first part of the overview video will be an overview of everything we know of, but I will show it in more detail and actually show it in game, right? It's better than just over months and months of Friday Facts. And then I will, like give a warning, like spoilers, in this next section. And then I will cover an overview of all the stuff that's not been shown, just in case people want to know. But I do want to make sure that I don't spoil, the kind of hidden stuff for people. So if you're worried about that, you can rest easy. I'm not just going to start off spoiling stuff right off the bat in the video, and I'll make it very clear when the spoilers are coming. And then I will also be starting a Let's Play once the media embargo lifts. And again, I won't be spoiling anything that hasn't been shown to the best of my ability. The first bit of the playthrough will be stuff that's shown. Once I get to some parts that maybe weren't, I will make sure to give a warning like, hey, we're probably going to see something here that maybe hasn't been shown yet, up to a point. Now, I did sign the NDA, and the devs have asked, I don't know, I will reread the NDA, but regardless of if it's in there or not, it doesn't matter. The devs did ask that even after the media embargo lifts, that information about the last planet and the end goal of the game be kept secret. I believe it was more of a courtesy thing, but again, it doesn't matter if it was or not because I'm going to respect their wishes and not show it. So you may see other content creators showing it off. If you don't want spoilers, I would suggest you tread carefully because there is quite a lot past the first, I can't really say anything, but there's definitely stuff that will be big spoilers if you look into that. Again, I'm going to respect their wishes. I'm not going to show anything, talk about anything with the last planet or end goal until the game has officially been released, and then I will, because then everyone can look and experience it for themselves at their leisure. But up until that point, I'm not going to go into that. But I just want to give you a heads up, like some content creators may not follow the same thought process or procedure that I am, so definitely just keep an eye out, but don't just tread carefully because if you don't want spoilers on that. But I think that's gonna do it for here, it was a little ranty. I apologize. I was awake for like the last 25 hours. I mean, I slept, but I just woke up. I was awake for like 25 hours, had like a 14-hour flight. So I'm a little bit out of it. I hope you understand, but I can just say this event as a whole was absolutely amazing. Honestly, like one of the highlights, I'll go into this more in another video probably, but one of the highlights for me was just talking with the developers. I mean, like I got to meet so many of the devs. You know, V was on our team. I got to play, you know, the game with him every day and talk with him every day extensively. You know, I met Twinston previously. I talked a lot with Regard. He was very involved in like talking with teams, taking suggestions. He's incredibly nice, awesome guy, and yeah, I really enjoyed meeting him. I met JG. I met Feargol. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And Kovrex. Like honestly, probably the highlight of the trip for me was the last day. Colonel Will, myself, Mojo, and Stu, Stu Dex, part of Will's community, we talked to Kovrex for like 45 minutes straight during lunch, and like he just started talking to us about like the quality system. What do we think of it? Like, how do we like? Do we think it works well? Do we like it? You know, how he, you know, thinks that it should be used, or what his intention was with it when introducing it. And then we were like asking him questions, and you know, he was like, oh, well, you know, like I do it this way in my save. And we were like asking him questions. He's like, okay, well, here, come on, follow me. Let me just go show you in my save. And like, you know, we just sat down with Kovrex and he showed us his 2.0 save that he's been playing for like 300 hours, and like all these setups he has of like doing all these different processes. And man, it was just awesome. You know, like all these developers are so involved. They're so, you know, committed to this game and the project. And I mean, you know, Kovrex is super nice, you know, really cool guy. And I mean, everyone I met. I did not meet everyone on the dev team, but everyone I did meet was just fantastic, really friendly, really open to suggestions and ideas. And like, you know, they just really care. And we knew that already, but actually seeing it in person is amazing. And you know, I don't think there's many other dev teams like this for games. And there was another key moment. I want to end in here shortly, I promise. But there was another key moment where, you know, one of the devs, I think it was Rhaegar, who like he was talking with us and we were suggesting something, and he was like, or no, I think we said there was something we liked, and he was like, oh yeah, when I was, you know, doing my playthrough, I noticed this and didn't like it, so I decided to change it, and that's why it is the way it is now. And like that was a key moment, and we talked about this with him, where it's like, this is why this game is so great and why the dev team is so great, because they actually play their own game. Like so many games, the devs just code and then just release it. Like they don't play it, you know, but it seems like pretty much every single person on the Factorio dev team plays their game fairly extensively. You know, Kovrex has a 300-hour plus save. V has multiple hundreds of hour saves. I know he plays a ton. You know, obviously Rhaegar plays. I think everyone plays to some degree, and you know, they just have that perspective of not only a developer but a player, and they also care what players think. Like, I didn't really expect it to be this, you know, like personal when we went. Like, I don't know, I wasn't expecting it to be like not friendly or anything like that, but I expected it to be like, you know, a big beta testing event, and like we just play, submit feedback with a button, boom, never hear about it again. But like on so many occasions, you know, you would submit feedback, and like an hour or two later a dev would come over to you and be like, hey, we got your suggestion, I have a few questions with it. Or like, you know, here's our idea, we can't quite do it how you suggested, but we have this idea, like what do you think of this? Or, you know, like, hey, we saw your bug report, can you walk us through like what you experienced? And it was just like, it just shows like how much these people care about their game and their community, because not many other teams do this. And it was just like such an amazing experience meeting everyone and being there and experiencing this. So I'm just going to close out by saying thank you again to the entire dev team for not only making Factorio and the expansion, you know, such an amazing experience, but inviting me to this event. It was one of the best things I've experienced. and I absolutely cannot wait to continue playing and to make content for it. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for watching. If you have questions, leave them below. I will answer what I can under the NDA, or even about the event. I can answer a lot about the event, but that is going to do it for this. Thank you so much, everyone. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.